They say some places never forget, no matter how many centuries pass. The stones remember the screams, the walls remember the blood, and the air still carries the last breath of those who never left. Across the world, there are places where the living are mere visitors, trespassers in lands claimed long ago by the dead, from forgotten castles to cursed forests. Every corner hides a story the darkness refuses to bury. So tonight, let's cross continents, oceans, and centuries and uncover the 15 most haunted places in the world, where the dead still whisper and the living never walk away unchanged. 1. The Old Changi Hospital, Singapore. There's something uniquely chilling about a place that once held both healing and horror. The Old Changi Hospital in Singapore was built in the 1930s as a British military facility, but when World War II came, it became something far darker. During the Japanese occupation, the hospital was seized and turned into a torture chamber by the Kempeitai, Japan's secret police. Prisoners of war were dragged into the basement. Many never came out. Locals still whisper that their screams echoed for miles. Even now, long after the last doctor left, the building hasn't gone silent. Urban explorers who've dared to enter report cold spots, flickering lights, and the overwhelming stench of iron like blood. Some have captured shadow figures standing in doorways, watching. Others have heard the soft, rhythmic sound of boots marching through the corridors, footsteps that stop when you turn around. One video, recorded in the early 2000s, shows a white mist forming in an empty ward, then twisting into the shape of a man before vanishing. Locals believe it's the spirit of a soldier still guarding the halls. Others say it's the ghost of a nurse, searching for patients who never made it home. The hospital was abandoned decades ago, but security guards still refuse to patrol it at night. They say the cries return at 3 a.m., the same hour the executions once began. So, if you ever find yourself standing before its gates, remember in Changi, some wounds never heal. 2. Edinburgh Castle, Scotland. High above the city of Edinburgh, carved into volcanic rock, stands a fortress that's seen more death than any battlefield. For nearly 1,000 years, Edinburgh Castle has loomed over Scotland, a place of kings, prisoners, and ghosts that refuse to fade. The castle's dungeons once held war captives and traitors, their screams echoing through the stone. Even now, visitors describe the smell of decay in the lower chambers and sudden bursts of cold that feel like breath on the back of the neck. Among the castle's many spirits, the most famous is the Piper. Centuries ago, a soldier was ordered to explore a newly discovered tunnel beneath the fortress, playing his bagpipes so those above could follow his route. Halfway through, the music stopped. A search party went in, but he was gone. They say you can still hear his pipes on windy nights, the faint melody drifting from deep underground. There's also the headless drummer, seen before moments of tragedy or war. He appears without warning, beating a rhythm of doom that no one else can replicate. Some guards swear they've heard the drum echo through empty courtyards, a warning that history is about to repeat itself. Visitors have felt hands tugging at their clothes, unseen figures brushing past, and shapes moving in the mist beyond the walls. And when the fog rolls over the castle at night, it's hard to tell where the city ends and the graveyard begins. 3. The Myrtles Plantation, Louisiana, USA. In the sleepy town of St. Francisville stands a mansion so beautiful, it almost hides the horror beneath its walls, draped in Spanish moss and southern charm. The Myrtles Plantation is often called one of America's most haunted homes, and once you know its story, you'll understand why. The legend begins with a slave woman named Chloe. Desperate to regain her master's favor, she baked a birthday cake laced with a poisonous powder, just enough to make him ill. But when his wife and daughters ate it instead, they died in agony, overcome with guilt. Chloe confessed. The other slaves, fearing punishment, dragged her into the courtyard and hanged her from a tree. Since then, she's never left. Guests have seen a woman in a green turban wandering the halls, her shadow appearing in mirrors and photographs. The famous Chloe photo, taken in the 1990s, shows a faint, translucent figure standing between two buildings, her face turned toward the camera, watching. But Chloe is not the only spirit here. Visitors speak of ghostly children playing near the stairs, phantom footsteps echoing on the porch, and soft piano music drifting from the parlor long after midnight. Some even claim to have seen the original mistress of the house gazing out from the upstairs window, her reflection not quite matching her movements. Every night, the plantation breathes, the walls creak, the chandeliers sway, and whispers rise from empty rooms. And if you stand quietly at the foot of the grand staircase, you might hear it, the faint laughter of children and the slow rhythm of footsteps that aren't yours. 4. The Stanley Hotel, Colorado, USA. Perched in the Rocky Mountains, the Stanley Hotel looks serene, its white facade gleaming under the Colorado sky. But when the sun sets, its halls hum with something else entirely. This is the hotel that inspired Stephen King's The Shining, and for good reason. Built in 1909 by Freeland Oscar Stanley, the hotel welcomed guests with elegance and grandeur. Yet, it didn't take long for the strange stories to begin. Guests reported hearing piano music from the empty ballroom. Doors opened and closed on their own. Children's laughter echoed down the corridors long after midnight. Room 217 is the most infamous. Years ago, a housekeeper named Elizabeth Wilson was caught in a gas explosion. There she survived, but her spirit never left. Guests still find their luggage unpacked or folded neatly overnight. Sometimes, a faint light flickers beneath the door, as if someone inside is still working. In the concert hall, the piano plays by itself, the keys pressing down in slow and deliberate notes. In the basement, staff hear voices whispering in empty rooms, and one figure, a man in a suit, is seen pacing endlessly near the stage. Even Stephen King himself stayed here one snowy night. He dreamt of his young son running down the endless corridors, screaming, chased by a fire hose that had come to life. When he woke, he knew he'd found his story, and perhaps something darker that still lingers there. The Stanley doesn't need imagination to be terrifying. It already is. 5. The Island of the Dolls, Mexico. South of Mexico City, in the floating gardens of Xochimilco, lies a place that looks like a nightmare made flesh. Dolls, hundreds of them, hang from trees, fences, and walls. Their eyes are cloudy, their limbs broken, their faces streaked with dirt and mold. This is La Isla de las Muñecas, the island of the dolls. It began with one man, Don Julian Santana Barrera. Decades ago, he found the body of a drowned girl in the canal near his home. Soon after, he heard whispers at night, saw shadows moving across the water, and felt unseen eyes watching him. To appease her restless spirit, he began collecting discarded dolls, hanging them one by one around his island, each a gift to the child he believed still haunted him. But over time, the dolls took on lives of their own. Visitors claim their eyes follow you as you walk. Some turn their heads when you're not looking. On humid nights, the air fills with whispers, a chorus of tiny voices calling from the trees. In 2001, Don Julian's body was found floating in the same spot where the girl had drowned. Locals say she finally claimed him. Now, those who visit leave offerings, toys, candies, and new dolls, though most swear they can feel the island's gaze before they even dock. By day, it's eerie. By night, it's unbearable. Because when the wind moves through the dolls' hollow heads, it sounds almost like laughter. 6. The Catacombs of Paris, France. Beneath the glamorous boulevards of Paris lies another city, one of bones and silence. The catacombs stretch for miles, housing the remains of more than 6 million souls. Walls of skulls stare blankly into the dark, and narrow tunnels twist so deep that even experienced explorers lose their way. It began in the late 18th century, when overcrowded cemeteries forced the living to relocate the dead. Night after night, carts carried bones from churchyards to the labyrinth below. The workers said they heard whispers rising from the wagons, like the dead objecting to their exile. Since then, the catacombs have become a labyrinth of the lost. Those who venture too deep report cold gusts of air where there should be none, voices calling their names, and shadows that move without light. In 1990, a camcorder was found deep within a forbidden section, its footage showing a lone man running, panicked, before dropping the camera. His body was never recovered. Some visitors speak of phantom candles flickering inside tunnels, guiding them or luring them farther in. Others claim to have seen figures in tattered robes, their faces hidden, silently watching as they pass. There's a story that at midnight, the catacombs come alive, the bones rearranging themselves, the skulls whispering in unison. They say the dead want company, that every lost soul down there once walked in with a flashlight and never walked out again. Would you follow the flicker of a light in that endless dark just to see where it leads? 7. The Ancient Ram Inn, England. On the edge of the quiet Gloucestershire village of Watton-under-Edge sits a building older than the town itself, the Ancient Ram Inn. From the outside, it looks quaint, even charming. But step inside, and the air changes. This is a place where time fractures, where centuries overlap, and where evil has made its home. Built in 1145 on a pagan burial ground, the inn's foundations are soaked in ritual history. It's been a priest's house, a traveler's inn, and according to legend, a site for witchcraft and sacrifice. During renovations, workers uncovered the remains of children buried beneath the floorboards, along with daggers and ritual objects. Visitors describe hearing dragging footsteps in the hall, feeling unseen hands tug at their clothes, and waking to the sensation of something pressing down on their chest. One former owner, John Humphreys, claimed to have been attacked by an invisible force on his first night there. He spent the rest of his life trying to understand what lived with him or within him. The Bishop's Room is considered the most haunted. Guests who've dared to sleep there often flee before dawn, pale and trembling. They report seeing figures in robes standing over their beds, or hearing the guttural laughter of something that isn't quite human. Locals say the Ram Inn is a door that was never meant to open a crossroad between the living and the damned. And every night, that door creaks a little wider. 8. Leap Castle, Ireland. They call it the most haunted castle in Ireland, and perhaps the world. Leap Castle rises from the awfully countryside like a wound that never healed. Built in the 13th century, it has seen betrayal, bloodshed, and horrors so profound, the land itself seems poisoned by them. Its most infamous story begins in what's now called the Bloody Chapel. During a power struggle, one O'Carroll brother murdered another, a priest, while he was saying Mass. The walls absorbed his final breath, and the stain never left. For centuries, travelers have reported hearing muffled screams, the clang of iron doors, and the faint chant of a Latin prayer cut short. But that's not all. In the 1900s, workers discovered a hidden chamber behind a wall, a pit lined with spikes and filled with hundreds of skeletal remains. Victims had been thrown in alive, left to die slowly in the dark. And then there's the elemental, a creature said to appear as a decaying, half-human shadow with rotting flesh and the stench of sulfur. Those who see it are overcome with dread, some collapsing, others fleeing the castle, never to return. Current owners have tried to restore Leap Castle, but even they admit it's alive in a way no home should be. Doors open by themselves, candles blow out in rooms without drafts, and at night, you can hear something moving on the stairs, slow, heavy, and breathing. It's said the castle hungers, not for blood, but for fear. 9. The Banff Springs Hotel, Canada. Hidden in the Canadian Rockies, surrounded by mist and pine, the Banff Springs Hotel was built to be a paradise of luxury, but what it became was something else, a monument to grief, where guests check in but never truly leave. Known as the Castle in the Rockies, this grand hotel opened in 1888, drawing travelers from around the world. But behind the polished marble and glowing chandeliers, its corridors have long whispered with tragedy. One legend tells of a young bride descending the grand staircase on her wedding day. A sudden gust from an open flame startled her horsehair dress, setting it ablaze. Panicked, she tripped, fell down the steps, and broke her neck. Since then, staff and guests have seen her gliding silently down the same staircase, still wearing her gown, her face hidden beneath a veil of smoke. In room 873, another story lingers. A family was found murdered there, and though the hotel sealed the door, guests still hear faint cries from behind the bricked-up wall. Some have seen fingerprints appear on mirrors, too small to belong to anyone alive. But the most famous spirit of all is Sam the Bellman, a friendly ghost in uniform who helps lost guests find their way to rooms that no longer exist. No matter how many times the hotel is renovated, The past seeps through. The Banff Springs may welcome tourists by day, but by night, it welcomes memories that never fade, footsteps in empty halls, laughter without faces, and a wedding that never ended. Would you dare to stay in room 873 if you could find it? 10. Bhangar Fort, India. In the dry heart of Rajasthan, where the sands whisper like voices, stands Bhangar Fort, a magnificent ruin bathed in sunset gold by day, but feared like a demon by night. The Indian government has posted signs at the entrance warning visitors not to enter after dusk. And there's a reason. The legend begins with a sorcerer named Singhiya, who fell in love with Princess Ratnavati, knowing she'd never love him back. He tried to enchant her with a potion, but she saw through his trick and threw it onto a boulder, which rolled down and crushed him. With his dying breath, he cursed the entire city that no soul within its walls would ever live again. Soon after, war came. The city was destroyed and every inhabitant slaughtered. Since then, no one who's tried to rebuild has succeeded. The roofs collapse overnight, crops fail, and strange winds howl through the ruins. Locals tell of phantom lights flickering atop the walls, of women's laughter drifting through the corridors, and of shadowy figures moving among the broken temples. Even animals avoid the place after sundown. Visitors who dared to stay overnight reported hearing screams, the clatter of bangles, and sudden gusts of cold air sweeping through the desert. Some fled at dawn, others never made it out. They say if you shout your name inside the fort at night, the echo doesn't return, because something else whispers it back. 11. Poveglia Island, Italy. Just south of Venice, across shimmering canals and salt-stained ruins, lies an island that even locals refuse to name aloud after dark Poveglia. For centuries, it's been called the Island of the Dead. When the Black Plague swept through Europe, Poveglia became a dumping ground for the infected. Boats carried bodies by the thousands, some still breathing, mistaken for dead, and threw them into great burning pits. The soil here is said to be mixed with the ashes of over 100,000 souls. Later, in the 20th century, a psychiatric hospital was built on the island. Patients whispered of hearing voices screaming from the fog. Doctors dismissed them until one physician began experimenting on his patients, drilling holes into their skulls in search of cures. Legend says the ghosts drove him mad, chasing him up the bell tower where he leapt to his death. Some say he didn't die, that unseen hands caught him halfway down, dragging him into the mist. Today, Poveglia is forbidden to the public. Fishermen won't anchor near it, and those who do return speaking of the smell of rot carried by the sea breeze and bells that ring, though the tower has no clapper. The locals have a saying: when you go to Poveglia, you don't leave alone. They mean it literally, because every traveler who steps on that cursed soil leaves with something that follows. 12. Eastern State Penitentiary, Philadelphia, USA. The moment you step through the crumbling gates of Eastern State Penitentiary, the air changes. It's colder not from the weather, but from the weight of what happened here. Built in 1829, this was once the most ambitious prison in the world, designed to reform inmates through silence and solitude. But in the end, it only broke them. prisoners were locked alone for 23 hours a day. No contact, no sound. Just the drip of leaking pipes and the echoes of their own minds unraveling. Some scratched prayers into the walls. Others spoke to things no one else could see. When the guards opened the cells, they found men rocking in corners, eyes wide, mouths moving, but no words coming out. Visitors today hear the same whispers, disembodied voices calling from cell block 12, footsteps pacing in locked corridors, doors slamming themselves shut, and sometimes a figure half shadow, half human appears near the old guard tower before vanishing into the night. Paranormal investigators describe the prison as a hive of trapped energy. One psychic claimed it's not just haunted by the inmates, but by the guilt of the system itself, centuries of punishment echoing endlessly, seeking release. Stand in the center rotunda long enough, and you'll feel it, the cold breath behind your neck, the weight of invisible eyes watching from every cell. And in that silence, if you listen carefully, you might hear the faint clink of chains and someone whispering your name. 13, Château de Brissac, France. In the Loire Valley, beneath skies that turn violet at dusk, stands Château de Brissac, a masterpiece of Renaissance beauty built atop medieval tragedy. Behind its gilded halls and elegant towers hides a story soaked in betrayal and jealousy. They call her La Dame Verte, the Green Lady. Centuries ago, Charlotte de Brissac, the wife of the Duke, was caught in an affair. When her husband discovered the truth, his rage ended both their lives. Since that night, Charlotte's spirit has never left. Guests describe her presence long before they see her, the scent of old perfume drifting through the corridors, a soft sigh echoing in rooms with no wind. But when she does appear, her beauty fades into horror. Her face, pale, ghastly, and torn, bears the wound that killed her, her eyes weeping emerald light. Those who've stayed overnight tell of hearing two voices arguing behind locked doors, hers and his forever trapped in that moment of fury. Even now, the Duke's descendants claim to feel her near, especially during storms, when lightning flashes reveal a shadow in green gliding past the windows. The chateau's grand facade may gleam under the French sun, but step inside, and you'll realize that love and hate can haunt the same room forever. Château, Aokigahara Forest, Japan. At the foot of Mount Fuji lies a silence so deep it swallows your heartbeat. Aokigahara, the sea of trees, is one of the most haunting places on Earth. The dense canopy blocks out the sun, the moss muffles every step, and your compass will spin uselessly, as if the forest itself refuses to let you leave. Locals say it's cursed, that the spirits of the lost wander beneath its tangled roots, whispering to the living, luring them deeper. This is Japan's suicide forest, where over the decades, countless souls have come to end their lives. The authorities have stopped publishing the numbers, but the forest remembers every single one. Hikers often speak of hearing faint cries in the distance, or seeing flickers of white through the trees, not animals, but human shapes. Some leave colored tape behind to find their way out, yet even then, the paths seem to shift when you're not looking. Spiritualists believe Aokigahara is a gateway a threshold between the world of the living and the eerie, the angry dead who cling to sorrow. They feed on grief, on despair, on every broken thought you carry with you when you enter. If you ever visit, you'll notice the air grow heavier. The forest doesn't want you to talk, doesn't want you to breathe too loud, because the moment you do, something might answer back. 15. The Tower of London, England. It begins with the sound of chains, heavy, echoing through cold stone corridors that haven't known peace in nearly 1,000 years. The Tower of London was never just a fortress. It was a tomb built brick by brick with betrayal and blood. Here, Anne Boleyn still walks headless along the Tower Green, her ghost shimmering in moonlight, clutching something invisible, her missing head. Guards have sworn they've seen her face staring from darkened windows, the air heavy with the scent of old roses and despair. It's said that the ravens of the tower never leave because their souls are bound to it, protectors of the crown's cursed legacy. When they caw at night, it sounds like laughter mocking, echoing from the days of execution and torture. In the White Tower, footsteps echo when no one walks, and whispers murmur from locked rooms where the princes in the tower were said to have been murdered 2 young boys whose skeletons were found centuries later. Some claim they still appear on misty nights, small figures holding hands, lost and crying for their mother. The tower doesn't just keep history, it feeds on it. The walls pulse with centuries of pain, and if you listen closely, you might hear the distant clink of a sword, the sob of a queen, or the last heartbeat of a condemned soul. Would you dare stand alone in the tower after midnight, with only the ravens to watch over you? From cursed forests to forgotten prisons, from castles drenched in history to islands filled with ghosts, these places remind us that the dead are never truly gone. They linger in echoes, in cold spots, in the corners of our dreams. Maybe they're watching. Maybe they're waiting. And if you ever feel a chill for no reason, maybe it's not the wind. Maybe it's one of them, whispering to you from the other side. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this chilling journey, don't forget to like, comment with your favorite haunted location, and subscribe for more weekly videos from the shadows.